Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob W, Ben White, Maximum Gravy, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Maris, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Muted, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Was that
Nathan?
Morning.
Morning, Nathan?
Morning.
Good to see you again.
You here?
Are you doing good, Nathan?
Not really, but I'm okay. I'm good enough to do a show.
Oh, good.
I'm going to get a drink.
All right, you guys.
Be right back.
Oh, sorry.
Stevie B, what's happening, buddy?
I was just going to say, we don't like dead air, you guys.
So,
Come on.
what do we got on Discord? What's been going on? Tell me what's been happening.
Oh, you know how it is. Same as everywhere, Neil. You know how we get. We fight amongst ourselves a little bit, you know. And it's such a crazy world. My God, huh? People forget that. You got to...
But that's good because
Science.
they could never consider us an echo chamber. I don't know where they ever got that from. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we don't agree on and we fight about.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't get out of it, all the lies. That's why you got to be careful, right?
Because I was starving for some, airtime, I jumped on Jen Pandas. So they were talking about same thing, what you see in the distance and how much is missing and all that other nonsense. Then I got into some things that we can't talk about here. So then I told them that I think clones are real. So Brenda's like, you think clones are real? I said, yeah. I saw a movie called Attack of the Clones. It's real. She's like, you've seen a movie and you think it's real? I said, yes. I saw it on the telly. It's got to be real. Just like I saw the moon landing on the telly. She didn't get it. She's like, that was just a movie. I was like, exactly, Brenda. It was just a movie. So was the moon landing, you dimwit.
Well, that's why I call everything I watch now a movie. Because that's kind of the way it is, right? Is that true?
If it's a
two-dimensional,
if it's a two-dimensional image that you're receiving through a television, then it's a movie.
It's a movie.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it's true.
That's the way I roll.
You've seen it on the telly.
Hey, Neil, I heard that movie cratered at the box office.
Listen, I forgot what I was going to say.
Neil, hey everyone. Hey Nathan. Good to see you back, lad.
I
Hey.
got it now, Brian. I just didn't. It was noisy when I was listening to it. I was getting all the numbers and everything, but I kind of got lost and distracted. But I know exactly what you're talking about now. Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
but I'll just throw it out anyway so people can get it.
Go ahead.
If the MiG-25 can fly at top speed, right, for 5 minutes straight, and at top speed it flies at over 40 miles a minute, and the highest it ever flew at, which was only one time, was 23 miles. Then at 23 miles up, flying at top speed for 5 minutes, having to keep a pitch below horizontal, then there's no way that it could not crash into the ground if we lived on a globe. Because if we lived on a globe, then it would have to fly nose down. There's no way around it, and I showed that. It would have to be making up to be several degrees below zero pitch. It would have to have after, especially it's an accumulated thing. So each minute it accumulates more. So it can't not crash into the ground. The same with the X-15. The highest the X-15 was claimed to go was 65 miles. Now, I don't believe it ever did, but I don't believe there is 65 miles, but that's a separate issue. But the thing about it is that NASA claimed there was, that it did do that. But its top speed was over 5,000 miles an hour. It could fly over 85 miles in a minute, right?
Wow.
And it was claimed to actually reach its highest speed at 19 miles up. But it doesn't really matter if it was 63 miles. It makes no difference. Because if it has to fly, and it does have to, fly with nose down to go around the globe, if it's flying nose down to follow an altitude and curvature, well, because the follow an altitude means to follow curvature, because the altitude has to parallel the curvature, right? So for it to do that, it could fly at its top speed for 2 minutes. That's 171 miles it would cover at 5,000 miles an hour. Then there's no way it being able to fly at 85 miles a minute, even if it was at 63 miles high, it wouldn't matter. There's no way with a pitch down, it can't smash straight into the ground. The only way the X-15 and the MiG-25 and all the rest of every other airplane and flying object in the world, the only reason any of that exists is because we're not on a globe.
Correct.
Brian?
Do you think
Hold on.
that? Hold on. Wait. Do you think that they realized when flight was beginning to be discovered that this was going to be a problem for them? I'm talking about the heliocentrists.
They did, and I tell you why. 1 second, John. I just want to answer Neil's question. Yes, they did, because that's when they started changing the claims to do with the Coriolis effect. It stopped being that, like, we were rotating, so the stars rotated, and we noticed that the sun appeared to rotate. The moon wasn't involved. That was still claimed to go around us. But it wasn't directly involved, somewhat involved. But as soon as they realized that when they flew, that the Earth stayed stationary, but the sky didn't, then they knew. But they had to start changing it to things move with the atmosphere. The atmosphere moves things along, which destroys their own claim anyway, in a different way. I won't go into that now. But it destroys their own claim anyway, because if you're trying to go from the east coast to the west coast of America, and you're trying to fly from A to B, then there's no way but to fly through this supposed moving atmosphere. So that means the Coriolis effect for someone standing on the ground looking at you in the plane. Do you know what I mean? It's nonsense. So that they changed that. They had to change all their claims from Coriolis to Globiolis when they started noticing that they were flying and the Earth wasn't moving underneath them. Sorry, John.
Well, I was just going to say, Brian, that the globe Earth is a flat Earth model, so you wouldn't expect there to be any curvature.
Well, you wouldn't expect to dip the nose down or make any corrections for a curve, considering you're flying over a flat Earth. That's true.
Right. So, yeah, we don't have to worry about that thing anymore if we believe in the globe.
But yeah, you just follow a flat altitude. That's it.
That's why it's called an airplane.
Well, there's argument about that because they don't even bring up that argument with them, because they start going back to the ancient Greek where plane meant to wander and all this, because they'll do their best to avoid that.
Out of here, please.
I know.
Listen, did you hear the nonsense they were talking about on Globebusters yesterday? Oh boy.
I didn't listen to it.
Yeah, I listened for about 10 minutes. I'm starving because Nathan wants to beat himself up and take himself out for 2 days. So, you got to bounce around and catch a few things. Yeah, they're talking about they're suing NASA. Oh,
Well,
boy.
is it Globebuster specifically?
Yeah, they're going to sue NASA. They were talking about this other guy that's got some model, and he's talking about dielectric acceleration. And, oh, boy. I couldn't listen more than 10 minutes, and I left. And I'm blocked anyway. Everything I was saying, nobody was hearing anything because they got me blocked over there.
At least with dielectric acceleration, there'll be plenty of charges in court.
Yeah, Whitsitt was saying well, I understand their point because they are lying, they are taking our money. So, sue them.
Yeah, as an American, you could, as a group, you could get together and sue NASA because they are taking your tax money, they are bringing up your taxes on the yearly, and they're not producing the evidence for their claims. So yeah, you could bring them to court. Whether you'd win or not, I don't know, but you could definitely bring them to court. You definitely, the evidence would definitely be in your favor, but whether you get the decision would be a different matter. But the thing about it is, what's Bob Nodell going to do? What's he going to do? Is he going to argue we can't have gas pressure without a container, or is he going to be showing a lot of nonsense from the ISS? Do you know what I mean? Is he going to argue the actual reason why NASA can't be doing what they're saying, or is he going to do some other thing? I predict he's going to do the wrong thing because that's all he ever did.
Yeah, they were talking about the ISS yesterday because I heard Whitsitt say that NASA said something about the ISS is going to crash to Earth in 2032 or something. I don't know. I have to go back and listen. I really don't want to, but to get everything exact, I would have to.
It's already resting in the bottom of a pool. What do you mean crash?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. NASA were saying, I saw something on Google, NASA were saying they're coming up with a plan to crash the ISS or something in the past few days, or kind of let it go off out into space or something. I don't know.
Maybe that's what they were talking about.
That's a complex fix for toilet issues not working in space, just to let it go. Maybe if there's a hole, you just put your finger in there.
Oh, you push stuff out of it.
Yeah, you just push stuff. Yeah, but you can't. The EPA would be after you for putting waste particles out in space. So you can't live there.
Leave it to Xanadu Bob. Xanadu. What kind of stupid ass name is that?
I don't like the idea that this whole court case thing is happening with him being involved, because if the American people are going to get any justice, I don't think they're going to get any justice with that guy involved, because he's a train wreck from start to finish. The guy is an absolute train wreck. He shouldn't be left going near a toaster. Do you know what I mean? The guy just constantly makes claims, constantly doesn't back them up.
He was talking about the downward bias.
Hang on, that toaster's not a bad analogy. He's always popping off.
Well, he was talking about how this guy explains, good 1/10. This guy explains why there's a pull to the center. There's a pull to the center. I don't feel no pull to the center.
Yeah, well, look, if you're going to claim that gas goes down, goes boom, boom. I mean, I don't really know.
Center of what, Neil? Center of what?
Center of this presupposed spherical Earth that we have.
Oh, this is something very similar. That's supposedly where the sextant's being used, right? Where it's an equatorial plane.
Yeah. When you cut it directly in half, this globe, yeah, you're on a flat plane. Then I agree. Still going flat.
So why not take the measurement from the surface of the Earth, which is flat, and then just draw some pictures and say you're getting it from a cut-up globe?
Because you can't do it on a teeter-totter.
No, that's what they're doing. That's how they trick people. They measure flat, and then they say, where can we get a flat surface on the Earth that's a globe? We have cut it in half and use the equatorial plane. That's where it's flat. That's where we'd say we got it from.
Well, they have two flats. They have the equatorial plane that they made up, and then they have tangent planes as they need them. You know what I mean? So as they need them, it's always flat.
Yeah,
Hey, Brian, did
It's
you
the
see that?
flattest globe ever.
yeah, because of the handy tangent plane in the back pocket, they can just zip it out any time, right, Brian?
Did you see
Well-
that thing I sent you, Brian? That guy that in the chat, in Nathan's chat the other day?
Yeah, 40 horizontals. Horizontal
What a
is
moron.
a constant. Yeah, horizontal is a constant. You can't have more than one horizontal. Horizontal doesn't change from from a low. It doesn't. It's not. They're trying to say there's such a thing as a local horizontal. There's no such thing as a horizontal being local and then some other horizontal being local. Horizontal is horizontal. All horizontal lines, they can change in elevation above sea level, but they all have to be parallel. They can't change. Horizontal never changes. You
That's
can't.
crazy.
This is what I've said before. Sorry, 1 second then. This was my point with my other videos last year on that about the airplane. You can't violate horizontal. Can't do it. Sorry.
Well, it's crazy to say horizontal is local unless you're Spanish.
You know, the equatorial plane is just the tangent plane you use for the northern hemisphere of the globe, the celestial sphere. That's all that is. So, like, any which way you flip it, that tangent plane will be, you know, like if you're looking at the left side of that made-up sphere, you could put it right through the middle. It's always through the middle. They never do any measurements from the surface, supposedly, it seems like.
Well,
So I've
the
been
Sextants-
watching a few of these.
Go on.
I was saying, I've been watching a few of these sextant things online, and even there's a couple. The people who are presenting are not anti-flat earthers or globers. These look like professional people who are telling you how to use a sextant, and they're even brainwashed. Because I was watching one the other day, and the guy starts off with a whiteboard, and he's drawn the globe, and then he's telling you about the sun shining its light to the presupposed center of the earth, and he's going on about all this jargon and the center of the earth when you cut it in half, and then later on in his presentation, he starts talking about the angles then and showing you the angles. So he flips from one thing to the other. Now this guy's actually, you know, he's used a sextant, he's done navigation, and even he's not getting it. Even he's brainwashed. And this is what these anti-flat earthers are picking up on. You know, I know, Temph, you've said their books do actually explain it correctly, but I think there's bits in their diagrams and books that also don't. And that's what they're jumping on at the moment. Anyway, just thought I'd let you know about that.
No, that's good. That's good, because the whole point was what you did was what I did when I first started researching, is just watch what they say it is. And I kept watching and watching, buying books, reading, downloading PDFs, university studies, all those things. And I'm saying, wait a minute, they're just mixing two together here. They're telling you the earth is flat. There's only one way to get an angle, but then at the same time, they have to hide that by showing you other stuff. And so this is going to catch up with them, because more people now are doing what I did, which is doing their own personal research. I've watched that guy that you're talking. I know who he is. I've watched all these videos. And then they say it's got to be, and then he takes his hand and he goes like horizontal, but he wants to say level, but he can't say it. So he says horizontal. You can see he gets caught up because his mind isn't working right. It's just going to catch up to him when everybody starts doing their research and say, oh, I get it. You got the truth of how a sextant works, and then you got the lie of the globe, and you've intertwined them both with pictures, and this is how they fail for it.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Refracted Curvature, Neil, Brian's Logic, Eli, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Greetings.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, good to have you all. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
You're going to need R for that, Nathan. They ain't got it.
You're going to need a flat plane for that R, as the R is based on elevation angles to Polaris.
No, there is no geometric edge predicted by any math derived from a radius. No.
Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved adjacent?
Nope.
No one's even tried to say that that was the case.
Well,
Not
they
that
have.
I'm aware.
Sorry, Eliza.
I mean, not that I'm aware of, like, prior to us talking about it, I don't think anyone's even tried to express that you could.
Well, Brian said it best. They need a right angle to Polaris.
Well, what they've done is they tried to ignore the surface of this Earth altogether and say, no one ever said we needed to do measurements on the surface. That's what they've been saying.
Can I follow up with what I just posted a screenshot of? So
You posted it, Master B?
Yeah.
I'll just go and bring it up. Yeah, go ahead.
So they're talking about the what do you call it? Portal land charts. And what I've cited here is they say questions of latitude, longitude, compass variation, and the curvature of the Earth's surface could be safely ignored.
Happy days. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No, because
It
the
would
MiG would crash.
Yeah.
It would have to be on a flat plane if it would actually happen.
So Brian summarised in the pre-show about how a MiG would end up crashing into the ground because of its lack of lift versus a curved Earth, falling away from its position as it travels at absolutely huge speeds. So, if you remember, check that out on the pre-show. We might get into it in the live show again, we'll see. Any evidence of the distance to the sun? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that all airplanes would eventually crash into the ground. There'd be no way around it. They just would take a bit longer, I would think. But all airplanes, I mean, if they were flying around the globe, well, not exactly, no. They'd have to fly at a specific rate if they're flying at a specific altitude to match the curvature. But they'd all have to dip below horizontal. But anyway, they'd all have to be taken account for a rotating Earth underneath them, which they're not.
Gave 99% of it. They don't dip below horizontal, they stay above horizontal to maintain the lift that they need. That's only possible on a flat plane. There you go. That's all of it.
Yep.
Hello.
Hey, Owen.
Hey, Aaron.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
You're going to need a flat Earth for that.
Nobody talks about that one anymore.
Yeah, but you're going to need a flat Earth for that. You need elevation angles to Polaris to create a globe for us.
Through that. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Not without a flat Earth.
Well, Bob still actually had this message. I don't know if you picked up on that. Bob Nodell. He was convinced that in a vacuum chamber, if you release helium or hydrogen, that if you just let it settle, it will eventually, through, what is it, electrostatics or something, form a slight layer at the bottom, kind of like a pool.
You sure? I vaguely remember somebody posting something in Skype about that. And what I read was a description, allegedly from Bob Nodell, of a container within a container, i.e. a helium balloon inside a vacuum. Am I wrong in what I read?
Yeah,
No,
he
no.
said if you bust the balloon, that the helium will eventually then kind of sit around at the bottom.
Exactly.
Oh, well, that's incorrect.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, well, do you want to actually verbalise it, why it's incorrect?
Yeah, because gas expands in all directions. So as soon as that balloon busts, which it will under enough low pressure, that helium will fill the chamber. The only reason you'll have any difference in pressure from the top to the bottom will be due to temperature.
So what are they going to do? Sit around at the bottom and play cards? Have tea?
Hold on.
Have coffee?
Hold on. The description includes a process of popping a balloon, right? Well, as demonstrated by the fact that it didn't do that in the containment of the balloon. It filled the balloon equally in all directions. That's what the gas did when it was in the containment of the balloon. And if that balloon was in a vacuum and you removed the balloon as the container, the vacuum chamber replaces it as the container, and it will do the exact same thing, the gas that is, which is to say it would fill the container the same way it filled the balloon.
Worse again, why does the balloon pop? Because the pressures get so low that the internal pressure of the balloon is way higher than the external pressure of the vacuum chamber. And the balloon pops because the helium inside the balloon, or whatever gas is inside the balloon, wants to fill the available volume. It's mad for it, literally.
Okay, well, let's just summarise this with the actual question it's associated. So, any evidence that you can have gas pressure at all without the necessary antecedent of a container?
No.
Nope. We can't even make a vacuum without a container.
Okay, what about any...
Yeah.
Containment is necessary for any type of pressure.
Okay, as just slightly out of order, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Only DVs.
Yeah, well, if you're a heliocentrist, you'll need a flat plane to create a globe model.
The answer would be no, Nathan. There isn't. They can't create a viable hypothesis because they can't manipulate their IVs.
But any phenomenon they observe will be within the structure of a globe model if they're a heliocentrist.
Oh, well, they'll need a flat plane for that.
Yeah, but I mean, they'll still observe it. Whether they believe they're on a flat plane or a globe, they still observe the same light in the sky. It's what they decide that it is, and everything else is the problem.
The light itself wouldn't be the phenomenon. Something happening would have to be the phenomenon, and everything that happens within a globe model for them.
Well, they do make assertions about what the lights are and what they're made of and everything else and how they got there. So the light itself is a phenomenon.
No,
is
that's
a
wrong.
natural
Hold
phenomenon.
on. You've just whistled past him by giving a bad example. What it is and what it does is not the same as something actually occurring. So if you qualify the phenomena of the star appearing in the night sky, then you can call it a phenomena. Something's happened, right? No star, then there's a star. So the star's appearance is the phenomena. But then if you're going to science that, you're studying the cause of the star's appearance because that's the natural phenomena you're studying. Well, I think what's being described is the what's and the is of a heliocentric world when looking at and describing lights in the sky. Now, on occasion, they might do something, and that thing that they do is the phenomena, but there'll never be an opportunity for somebody to say, I can establish proactively the cause of the effect that's already happened. Because that would mean that
Well,
in terms of what the stars have got to do for it to be scientifically valid, is then assume the cause of what they witnessed and then vary it and make it happen again. Chances of that
Well,
happening, zero.
What is the cause of them saying the stars appearing in the night sky? What do they assert as the cause?
Well, that would mean that they had a viable hypothesis. That would be an answer to my question, wouldn't it? Any viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics could be answered by the naturally occurring phenomena of the appearance of the stars is presumed to be caused by X, and varied, when varied, caused Y, which was the phenomena of the stars appearing. But that's never going to happen, is it?
Their cause is Earth turn.
That's correct.
And that's what I'm saying. It'll have to be within a heliocentric description.
Well, then it can't be scientifically validated if they're claiming Earth turn as the cause of the star's appearance, because that would mean that you had to vary that which you assumed caused the effect, which would be the assumption of a spherical Earth moving. No, neither of those two statements are true in the first instance, let alone a causal thing that you can vary.
So but they don't have a phenomenon, is what it comes down to. They don't even have that.
Well, they have the existence of the star as a phenomenon. So they could claim, which they do, claim a cause for how the star came into existence, which they do.
The existence of Shu as a phenomenon is what we're getting at?
We know the existence of Shu. That's man-made, whereas the star is not man-made.
No, that's a what is question. It's not a how or why.
Yeah, but they do state a cause to the existence of it within their model.
Again, not scientifically validated. They've just come up with a just so story. They've gone a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away and then rattled off a story about the Big Bang. That's not a validation of a phenomena by way of systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis that assumed you knew the cause of the effect you witnessed and then varied something to cause it. That's just a story they made up, like I say, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, but this is why this all comes back to Einstein's E equals mc squared and the hydrogen fusion reactors, as they would state that what they're doing in a hydrogen fusion reactor is the same as what happens with the sun, as that is a star and all the stars. You know what I mean? This is as a kind of a broad strokes. They claim that they're all like hydrogen fusion reactors, more or less.
Yeah, it's a correlation, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Well, correlation is not causation. You can't say that the sun is caused by and then describe a chemical process or a reactionary process and say that is it because I can demonstrate a similar correlative process here on the ground. No, that's not validating your presumed cause of an effect by way of experiment based on you varying the thing you think caused it. Again, a just so story based on a correlation.
And it's also it's also a what is question based within a model.
Yeah, but you're actually correct when you say they're going to do a flat Earth for that, because how they say stars actually come into existence or ever did or anything in their universe, the heliocentric universe, is to do with gravitational accretion, isn't it? Or something along those lines. So it's all based within the model. I might have that on a bit wrong, but
no, that's correct.
That's all based,
no, that's correct. Yeah. You're not wrong.
Yeah, it's all based within the model, and the model is based on us being on a globe, and the globe is based on elevation angles to Polaris. And how do we know the distance to the GP of Polaris from an observer? You need a right angle. Flat Earth.
Any evidence the R value, Earth radius?
You must be having a laugh at this stage, Oakley.
Didn't you just hear what Brian just said?
That would be a no. Well, there is evidence of the R value, but there's no evidence of a measurement of R.
That's the wrong answer. John, you there?
You're going to need a flat plane for that.
You see.
I'm learning. You think I should say that, wouldn't you? You think I just say that straight out. But I didn't want to repeat myself.
Well, I don't want to... I left it to the last point to labour it, actually, because of that. Well, in the past, as I'm sure I've bored you all to death with my story of interviewing Robin Poe out in Ferrari, Italy, and getting a 140 14-mile straight line shot without any curve of the Earth interfering with a transceiver back to source rather than via relays. But we never actually summarised the point at the end well enough for an audience to understand the implications thereafter. Well, any evidence of an R value? Well, it's there, it's in the maths, it's used daily to assert that you're on a sphere with a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon blocking things into the distance. It's definitely still there, it's part of the Western world religion, in fact it's the basis of it. But, in the last couple of weeks, we're now in a very unusual position that, unlike the Black Swan where you've got to kind of go around the Reekin explaining how their response to it in rebuttal saying refraction actually debunks their claim in the first instance, that requires explanation. This doesn't. You're going to need a flat plane for that. It's just a geometric matter of fact in terms of how you acquire an elevation angle. So,
Yeah.
we've won. And I don't want that to ever not get laboured. It will get rumpused by Neil almost every time when I'm trying to concisely labour the point to the audience when nobody else has.
Sounds like you stopped. I just wanted to say, they're even telling us it's flat.
It must be. They have to correct it to be flat. If they try and weasel around a bastardised description of dip correction, which is height of eye correction above the flat plane that you must have to do this geometry, to use this trig, to do the function that you're actually trying to perform, you've got to have a flat plane beneath your feet. So if they try and bastardise dip correction into, no, it's actually correcting for the sphere Earth, you can focus on they're claiming you've got to do some correction because there's a sphere and Earth beneath our feet. Hold on, what are they actually saying? We've got to correct our misapprehension of a sphere being beneath our feet so that it's all flat. They need it, and it must be flat. And they're telling us how they correct it to be flat when they bastardise some vain, distant memory of their sphere that they used to beg the question of before doing anything. Now, they've got to relinquish it, and if they've still got hold of it, correct it flat.
Yeah, I'll give a less sarcastic rendition of it. The whole globe model is built on elevation angles to Polaris off a flat plane. You can't take an elevation to Polaris without a flat plane. You can't know the distance from Polaris without a flat plane because you need to know the observer's distance, straight line distance between the observer and the GP of Polaris, the geographical position of Polaris. So you need to have a co-altitude distance to then turn into nautical miles as a surface distance. And that means you need to use right angles. So if you're 45 degrees, if you have an angle to Polaris and it's 45 degrees, that means you're an exact straight line distance of 2,700 nautical miles from the GP of Polaris. So that requires a flat Earth. You can't do any of those things without a flat Earth. And all they did was they took all those angle measurements, they pre-assumed that perspective wasn't real, and they pre-assumed the sky was curved, and then they took it to the center of a circle and said, what's actually happening is we're on a curved surface, and the angles from the center, they can mathematically make work as angles to match the distance along the surface of the sphere, while all angles to Polaris then will all be 90 degrees from the anything from anywhere above the north of the equator. So that's what they did. So it's all. So when anyone asks a flat earther from here on in, any of the anti-flat earthers or ballers ask any flat earther from here on in, show me the flat earth model. You show them the 1972 blue marble, because that is the flat earth model.
You laugh, but that's the fact of the matter. When they drew out the flat plane and utilised the celestial sphere to measure angles, they derived the world that they described thereafter as spherical from a flat plane. That is just the facts of the matter here. So, cat's out of the bag. When they go back at engineering measurements taken from a flat plane, as they must be, they then describe those angles going into the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. That means they've got a flat plane at the middle of their sphere they believe they're on. So suddenly you're in the middle on a flat plane rather than on the outside edge. Now, if they're drawing out flat planes with the presupposition that doesn't require an elevation angle, they'll draw out a tangent plane to a presupposed tangent point that's been debunked. That's the Earth curve edge horizon. So they're still using a flat plane. Doesn't matter which way you look at it, because the ground beneath your feet is in fact flat. Whenever you actually utilise the world that you're standing on, you utilise it flat. And if you've got any fundamentalist religious presuppositions of it being spherical, you correct them flat.
I put a diagram in. Sorry, 1 second, Neil. I put a diagram in Master B that gives an explanation for it. It'll take a bit of looking at, but it explains it.
Okay, I've got it up.
That's what I was saying in the pre-show, that the globe Earth religion is built on a flat Earth model. That's what I was saying that for.
I had to. Neil, you're going to say something, I'll go after you. If you want to say something, I'll go after you. I'll explain this then.
No, I'm good. I'm waiting for you to describe this picture.
Okay, sorry. So here is Polaris, here is the flat plane, here is the angles that you require. You need a flat plane to take the elevation angles to Polaris, right? What they did is took the GP of Polaris, brought it down to the center of a circle. They put the flat plane here at the center of this circle. Then they determined from angles out from the center that to match the distances along the surface of Earth, that would match the distance along the surface of Earth. That they made these tangent planes, things that don't exist. They made those, and they determined that Polaris was a huge, massive star that gave off parallel light, and that's why all angles will appear from the north of the equator on the globe will appear to go straight up, because everything is straight up to Polaris. That involves also the one-way speed of light being measured and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of other things, but it doesn't matter because the whole thing is destroyed by this. They can't take the angles to Polaris without a flat plane. So all the distances that they work out from the center of the globe are all based on a flat plane. They're all based on right angle distances. So every one of them is just a back engineering from a flat Earth. So they back engineered a flat Earth and brought it to the center of a circle, and then made up a lot of other nonsense to go with it, basically.
That's amazing.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, this is a good diagram. I mean, it basically shows you what is working and how it's working. If you're actually acquiring measurements, everything below this line that I've highlighted with my mouse now is redundant. You don't need any of it. You just take an angle measurement. Now, if you happen to be above this line, i.e. this is the sea level, and you're on a boat that's slightly above it, then you'll make a correction so that you can bring it in line with the pure geometry of a right angle triangle. And wherever you are, your angle to, in this case, with Brian's example, Polaris, will decrease the further you go along this flat line. That's how the angle measurement will be taken, and must be taken, and is taken. Further to that, once you've got your angle off a flat plane as it must be taken, you can then presuppose that actually, no, that angle goes down to this point. And the centre of the presupposed spherical Earth is where the angle measurement will work to, with tangent planes sat on the edges. The only problem being that you're not measuring an angle from the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth in the core. This flat line that Brian has drawn to a minor degree at the centre of their presupposed spherical Earth could also extend out infinitely, and this line could just be considered, exactly as it is, the celestial sphere above you, with your measurements being measured to them, and it would work without any correction being done beyond your dip correction if you're using the horizon to establish a horizontal with a natural phenomenon. That would be the horizon. You don't necessarily have to do this dip correction I described in the first instance. For example, if you are using a tool like a bubble sextant, you've already established what your horizontal is. Therefore, no corrections required. You just draw out your triangle, measure your angle. Again, everything below this line being redundant. only utilised to describe what you will do with this angle once you've measured it on a flat plane, and you still want to retain your sphere belief. You have to put it to the centre of presupposed spherical Earth and ignore the fact that that is not where you are measuring an angle from. Anyone else got anything to add while I've got the diagram up?
Yeah, Nathan, I'm putting 2 slides of Master B for citation.
Yeah, well, all I'd like to say is that what they did was they had to take a distance from the GP, from their observation point to the GP of Polaris, which meant they had to sail along the surface of the waters. So this is all based on angles taken from mariners. So what they did is they had to sail south from Polaris and take those angles. So that means they had to correct for right angles. They had to correct for right angles. They had no choice. So a lot of our opposition don't understand that. They think, it can be, you don't need to use the surface. No, you do. If you're on a boat, you have no choice. You can't use the bubble section on a boat successfully. You have to use the horizon.
Okay,
and that's where they're...
Sorry, Brian. Carry on if you're not done.
I just say that's where their elevation angles come from. That's where the surface measurement comes from. So it's all a geometric surface measurement that requires flat Earth.
Absolutely. Glad you rounded it out with the summary. Kudos. Okay, I've got your first slide up. 10th.
Yeah. Hey, that was a good segue, by the way, Brian, for this. War Department, I was able to purchase TM1205, and I've been looking for TM1206. Finally, it became available. So it's on order. But I want to take a page out of this. There's very good stuff here. This is from the War Department, March 4th, 1941. Next slide, please. Therefore, let's just read from the top. Therefore, if angles D and D are 40, the observer's distance from S is 40 times 60 nautical miles, obviously. So a total of 2,400 nautical miles. But C is the key point. In practice, the zenith distance, D or D, is not measured, but it's a complement. The altitude angle is measured. Zenith distance is determined by substituting the measured altitude in the equation. Zenith distance equals 90 degrees altitude. Figure 15 shows the relationship between altitude and zenith distance. If the altitude angle H in figure 15 is 50 degrees, the zenith distance is 90 degrees minus 50, or 40, which expressed in nautical miles is 2,400 nautical miles. Listen up here, folks. The explanation of why the sextant measures altitude instead of zenith distance lies in the fact that the early instrument makers quite logically designed their instruments to measure altitude because the instruments had to be leveled on the visible horizon, there being no definite point which marks the observer's zenith. For uniformity of practice, artificial horizon instruments were built to measure the same coordinate, though the gravity-operated mechanisms of these instruments indicate the vertical, the observer's zenith, as well as the horizontal. Very interesting where they say it needs to be leveled at C. Dip correction levels it for a right angle, and with the artificial horizon and the bubble sextant, you already have the horizontal, which gives you the vertical, the right angle.
Exactly. Dip corrects you for your right angle measurement. Not because you've got a fundamentalist religious presupposition that there's a sphere-edge horizon that's a second horizon that we can't see, that cannot be measured, that you've got the entire premise of your tangent plane teeter-tottering on top of. No, because that correction is simply a correction to make it flat based on your height above sea level, and if you think you're on a globe, fine, we'll say it's a correction for your fundy sphere belief, so that it's flat. Either way, it's being corrected flat. Not required, as 10th Man just detailed, if you're using a bubble. That establishes your horizontal. Therefore, you don't need to correct anything. Earth's flat. Anybody got anything to add?
Only that, to reiterate that to do any of this and get any radius, because the globe Earth has a dual radii. It has a polar radius, which is 3950, and an equatorial radius of 3963, right? And an average radius of 3959, right? To get any of that, you need to know the elevation angle to Polaris as you move away from it. And to get any of that, you have to, the only way to gain an elevation angle is to use right angles, to use 90 degrees. That means you have to use a flat plane. Because all your distance measurements from the observer to the geographical position of Polaris have to be straight line distances, as there is no way around it. And they are measured with the baseline of your right triangle, which is always flat.
I think that's kind of what that screenshot was getting to. Mike over at 24/7 was explaining to me that they ignore the latitude. Well, this article said longitude and latitude specifically because it is a grid system and you are traveling a straight distance.
Yeah, you're traveling a straight distance from the GP of Polaris. That's how you get, like that. If you're 20 degrees, if Polaris is 20 degrees for you, let's say in the sky, it's not 20, sorry, not 20, but if it's 70 degrees off your horizon, that means you've traveled 20 by 60 nautical miles away from the GP of that. How do you know that? Because you're using a right angle. So when Al-Biruni and Eratosthenes before him had to both refer to the maths of Pythagoras for their supposed radius measurements, what were they referring to? Pythagoras' right angle. Because there is no other way for the globe model to have been created. There is no other way for the radius to have been created. That's the only way it was created. Elevation angles to Polaris. Right angle, Pythagoras.
So it's good not to downplay the monumental nature of this. So a couple of days ago, or yesterday, I forget which, I released an old show, and it was a specific show that I dug out to replay, although it hadn't been published on the channel it was published on. And that was of our discussions of the ranty flat earth, Ruhif, conspiracy cats, a few others, claims in regards to the Blackpool Swan. Now, you might be wondering why this is a show that needs listening to again. Well, because it's a recent show, and we're arguing various different points about them needing R and needing tangent point horizon, physical sphere edges, not being able to get straight lines because of refraction. Those were our arguments, all perfectly valid. However, in a very short space of time, the discussion has taken a massive quantum leap forward in terms of how that particular claim would have been addressed should it, or were it to come up now. That is to say that we'd say, you're proving a flat plane with this claim. You're describing angles. And any angle that you describe ever is going to require a flat plane measurement. Because how it's done in this regard is utilization of trig. And you're going to need a right angle triangle, and the bottom baseline is going to be a flat earth to do that. And can't not be. So, you'll need a flat plane for all of these claims. Any that involve trig, including but not limited to the acquisition of the radius value of a sphere Earth. So, it's not to be downplayed. If you're new to the argument, it's a good time to get into this argument. Because you've got a silver bullet finally. I don't know. We've had good debunkings of a globe up until this point. We've had good assertions that the Earth is flat with demonstrable evidence. We haven't had exceptional evidence that the Earth is flat. And by exceptional, I mean both sides have to accept it without exception. So both sides must accept that when you're taking an elevation angle, you're going to be using a flat plane to do it. That's a fact. So it's not just a good argument, it's a great argument. It's not just a great argument, it's a devastating argument for the globe belief, because their need is the same as ours. They need a flat plane to make their elevation angles, to make their sphere Earth claim. So they're going to need a flat plane to make their sphere Earth claim. That's a big change in the argument position. It was right in front of our faces the whole time. Nothing's really changed. It was always there right in front of us. Adam?
I think I told them, I think you leveled the playing field because they're agreeing with us. They have to start flat. So happy days.
I posted something in the Master B if you want to share it, Nathan. Sorry, Adam.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Can hear you. Are you the floating turd?
Yeah, no. I've had to come on through the work computer, so the camera's not working, so I had to pick a backdrop. But you look, there's a guy with a space sextant looking for his space plumb bob. That's why I kept.
So he is.
Yes, I'm just sat at work, so sorry, I'll have to keep moving.
You're just mucking around. Okay, right. Who wanted to present something?
No, I just have something that it's very poignant, and it actually is I think it's the absolute end and killer of this argument. If you want to post it, I just posted it in Master B.
Outstanding.
Which one? I've got the...
It's the blue marble, and there's something written on it.
The flat Earth model.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's just a painting, though.
Yeah, but that's the point. It's just a model. It's a model that was built off of flat Earth. So when they're looking for the...
I like the sentiment, but I like to nitpick.
Yeah, okay, but this is like the thing is that it's the truth. What you see there is a model based off of flat Earth. So when they're looking to see the flat Earth model, there it is. It's not reality. That is a model based off of flat Earth.
To make a model, yeah, and to have it described by their ethereal, all-encompassing terms that they like to use when they describe their model, right? Does everything. It's amazing. Well, then it's going to involve the Earth and the stars. That means making elevation angle measurements. That means that you're going to start with a flat plane. So all models that are going to be all-encompassing are going to be using a flat plane to make the claims. Now, unless they want to go forth and try, maybe that's why we have fourth-dimensional pseudo-force-based geometry. Maybe that's why we have it. Because in order to do anything that doesn't require a flat plane, well, next steps really is just invent your own geometry. And what do you know? Well, they have exactly that in the form of Einsteinian pseudo-Riemannian force-based geometry. That's an invention of their own doing. Just they need a new geometry, don't they? Why? Well, because as Brian's saying here, the geometry that this model, the globe model, was based on a flat plane. All the derivations started with a flat plane. Now, you can obviously take those flat plane measurements, rearrange them into your sphere belief, and then kid yourself that you're actually stood on a sphere. That's just reification. That hasn't changed either. But ultimately speaking, the model started flat and was measured flat, and then twisted into your fundy sphere belief that the rest of the Western world also stand behind.
So you mean to tell me that this blue marble started flat? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, the whole premise for it. Sorry.
That's why the argument is always inflated. Nathan, I got 2 slides in Master B on this point. If you can go.
Can't take the blue marble as the model. I will get to you in a second, Taylor, I promise, but I just want to round this out. It's an image that's come from a religious reification of a sphere Earth model to turn this, which we see here, into the belief that we have a violation of natural law sky vacuum with capabilities of image acquisition, and this is that image. But the reason the image exists is because we have the Western world under the misapprehension that the taking of a flat plane to measure elevation angles and then bending them into a radius-based sphere is actually caused to believe they have a sphere beneath their feet. Therefore, you end up with this image. It's a representation of the model as opposed to the model.
A consequence of a belief in that model that was created off of flat Earth.
Yeah, there you go.
Is the best Yeah. This is the best representation they've given people as a reality of that model, which is this claimed 1972 claimed photograph taken from the Apollo missions. So this is the thing. It's like this thing they're showing you that they're claiming is the physical Earth is not. It's a painting based off of a mathematical model that's based off of flat Earth measurements.
If you want to see it, in a more three-dimensional way, we'd already claimed it anyway after the fact, which is Google Earth. Well, Google Earth, if you draw out an elevation profile, when we're talking about taking elevation angles, well, all of the elevation profiles in Google show Earth flat. That's the measurements of Earth are flat in Google Earth, and must be. That's why you've got a square, flat-based box when you do an elevation profile. And you can draw out your line for thousands of miles and show there's no drop anywhere. There's no Earth curve. There isn't any. It would be measured. It would be documented exactly as claimed. It isn't. So what do we have left? Well, we've got Google Earth being a flat Earth model because the elevation profile proves it. It shows it and demonstrates it and shows it and claims it as measured flat. That's what it's showing and measuring. And it's being utilised daily by professionals to build stuff off. So, based on the fact that it shows it flat, measures it flat, gives you a flat elevation profile, and any elevation angle that's measured ever would demonstrate and require the geometry of a flat line, we can fundamentally say without doubt that Earth is flat. That's how it's been measured. So, you want to see them take that and convince you that you're on a sphere? Yeah, just zoom out and ignore all actual measurements presented to you in Google Earth. And you'll see it as a ball shape. Amazing, isn't it? However, despite the fact that you might have zoomed out and seen a ball shape, if you draw a massive line across the entire diameter of whatever it is you can see, it will show a flat elevation profile for that entire area. Because it is, in fact, flat for that entire area, as measured and demonstrated and sold to the public and built upon as flat, as a result of it being flat. Earth is, in fact, flat. 10th, do you want to take over from here?
Yeah. First, I want to shout out to Adam for showing images from a supposed ISS without wires. You do much better than NASA there, Adam. All right, so the first one here is the picture they always show. It shows the sun parallel to actual horizon, and then the height of eye. Do we have that one up? Yeah, there we go, Nathan. So this is the trick right here. Everything below that dotted line that's horizontal is made up. Now, here's how it works. You're on the surface of the Earth, and you're holding a sextant, and you need a right angle, but you're on a boat, say 14 feet above sea level. So you do height of eye, dip correction, which brings you down to the dotted line. Now you're parallel to a true horizon at your eye line. So when they say, well, the whole purpose of a sextant is to get a horizontal, well, how are you going to get it? You have to establish a plumb bob, a vertical at sea. Good luck. So what happens is they shoot the horizon. They say, how far above the sea level am I? 14 feet. Let's minus that from the other corrections we have to do. And then we're going to have a true right angle, which gives us our horizontal and vertical all at the same time. Now, what's below that dotted line? You see that solid line that's on an angle over that circle is called horizon. That's supposed to be their geometric horizon. Well, we've never seen it before. It's all fictitious. No one's ever seen Earth curve. Actual horizon dotted line. If height of eye is 0 minutes, 0 seconds. That's the way it's being done. Then they draw the circle with something that doesn't exist, a geometric horizon that you never see. And then they say, oh, by the way, we got everything from the center of the Earth. Go to the next slide, please. And this is how a sextant works, a right angle. Does that look like that could work from a surface with a curved adjacent? Impossible. That's why it's the age of the sextant.
Perfect. Good presentation. It is simple stuff. None of it requires the fundamentalist religious presuppositions of a sphere Earth, and if you have them, they're going to be corrected to be flat.
It's that the indoctrination is so deep. That's what it is.
Well, can I let the cat out of the bag, 10th? It's nothing, too crazy.
Yeah, which cat is it? The fifth one or the first one?
No, just that I'm planning on what we're planning. He actually called me up and I was like, "Yeah, word. Why didn't I think of this when I thought to myself about it?" And so I'm going to be interviewing him so that ultimately it'll probably be like a presentation, but more in interview form, so people know how he came across this information and where it led to and how we're here now. So be on the lookout for that interview.
You
Wait,
have to
your
give us
interview intent?
more information. You need to fill us in more than that.
I'll share. Eli and I have been talking behind the scenes, and he's asking a lot of good questions. So I said, well, why don't you just interview me and ask all the questions directly? He said, okay. So he's going to do something like that.
Oh, cool. Can't wait.
Excellent.
Yeah, I couldn't think
And
of
I just
another
wanna-
person to be asking the questions either, Eli. You do have a lot of good questions to ask, and you're right on top of it in terms of the arguments in general. Not much gets past you.
Yeah, both Eli. Eli is a very good speaker. I've said this to him at the weekend. He's a very good speaker, very calm, and he gets his point across in a way that everyone could understand. I can't do it like Eli could do. Eli can get his point across a lot better and more clear than me to all audiences. And I just want to say that 10th Man, basically, besides all the years of stuff that happened that brought us up to this point, 10th Man basically has given us the tools to show the world that it is not a globe. That the globe is only a mathematical model that's based on flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. So, shout out to 10th Man.
Hey, thank you, Brian. And I will say I got all the tools from the Globers and the Sextant books by them. So all the tools are from their own resources.
Yeah, but you brought them. You
No, I
off the
agree.
barrier that they could
Would
get
you
past.
take the glory?
Okay, right. Before these three get into an argument about how much ass kissing this should be done on this live show, I would like to get a straw poll done from the audience themselves and find out if you actually understand this stuff. If you're going around and declaring the fact that it's flat based on elevation angles, requiring it to be so, or if the argument's unclear, I'd like to, if you're watching this after the fact and you're not in the chat, leave me a comment. Just say, yeah, no, I get it. Earth must be flat. We can't have any of these angle measurements to any of these celestial bodies to make assertions of our measurements, or whatever it is that's sunk in this regard that lets me know you know in the audience. Because I don't want to downplay this. I want affirmation that people are getting it.
Yeah, Nathan, let me comment on what Brian said. I'm not doing it. Well, let me put it this way. I didn't answer the way I did for what people were laughing at. I did it because the ballers and the anti-flat earthers are saying we're making stuff up. And I just want the audience to know every bit of information I've cited, book cover, what they said, and there was not one. Let me just try it. Flat Earth Sextant book. Nothing comes up. So all I've been given was their books and the way they explained it. So I had to go through each page, try to figure out what they're doing. And so that's what came off the pages to me. Then I started doing the presentations, knowing that if I just put it out there, people who have greater debating skills than me, people who are smarter than me, people who know math better than me, like Adam, is going to progress the argument forward. And look where we're at. Look where we're at, how tight the argument is now. One guy can't do this. It takes all of us just looking at information and saying, well, I could say that much clearer. And that's where we are with the Sextant argument. It's much clearer. It's much quicker. It's over for them.
Nah, you're the man, Tent.
Yeah, I'd be too humble altogether. Smart people who are smart. Who's smarter than you? I mean, what does that mean? Well,
here's
smarter their own way.
Well, I'll tell you who's smarter than me. When someone said cosine, I thought that meant a loan, but I didn't know it meant something in math.
Yeah, well, look, it's like this. It's like, even though I pushed the airplane argument, because I love it as a simple argument for the average everyday person, that is only going to be a sidebar, because the globe wasn't built on air travel. The globe model was built mathematically off of celestial navigation and elevation angles using celestial navigation techniques to Polaris. So the globe model is built off a flat Earth, and that comes back to the use of celestial navigation.
Yeah, I never thought we'd get really down to brass tacks of how we'd been deceived and what actually took place in terms of the maths. But now, 2022, you go, yeah, I really do think I've got a good idea how we've been swindled and what they did mathematically and what they used to get there. You say, oh, yeah, well, we've boiled it down to, angle measurements to Polaris, utilising that to turn it into a sphere and give you your radius. Well, you go, oh, what else you got? Well, the guy came on the other day, Flat Earth Data, told us all about how he got the Earth curve measurements, but without any reference to Earth curve, just being used, well, to establish a horizontal plane in navigation. Just dealing with the artifacts and getting a better handle on how the horizon's going to present it to yourself on any given day when you're going to be needing to correct for it, to give yourself a nice space for your geometry when you're doing a right angle triangle. You go, okay, so this is where the swindle came in then. Because it wasn't being called Earth curve, but the measurements all match. So we can see the timeline. The maths was already laid out. People were already good at it. People had a good mathematical understanding of the world, and the horizon was one of the things that they'd looked at. And they knew what was going to happen with it. And people took that and went, we can turn that into Earth curve. Let's do it. Let's just call it Earth. Just change the label on this title on this. Easy. Done. Now it's no longer refraction of the horizon for dip corrections. Now it's Earth curve. Done. Job's a good one. Maths doesn't have to change a bit.
The clues are all there when you do the research, because they'll come on. These are the people who've been using a sextant for 30, 40, 50 years, navigating successfully with it. They'll say, yeah, when we have to do it, we have to imagine the Earth is flat and motionless. I said, wait a minute, I've heard that before somewhere. Didn't NASA and Martin Marietta and McDonnell Douglas say for their instrumentation to work on the aviation and those types of things, instruments, that the Earth has to be flat and motionless too? Why do they keep saying that if you live on a sphere that's spinning and going through all these gyrations through space, that the only way these things work is to imagine it's not?
Because it isn't. Because Earth is actually flat. If you've got to deal with life and death scenarios, like high-speed manoeuvres over the plane, you're going to want to know how it actually presents itself, aren't you? If you're going to want to remain in the air because of lift, you're going to want to know what you're going to need to achieve that. And if the ground's falling away from you at a rapid rate, I think you'd want to know if you're flying an aeroplane. Now, do they? No. No, they're told not to consider it falling away from them, because that might cause them problems. Expecting it to fall away 8 inches per mile squared, diving towards it and finding that you find a flat plane meets you, that the ground hasn't fallen away from your position, as it would on a sphere. Yeah, best to consider it's flat and definitely in the way, rather than falling away from you and, an empty void being left behind where there's actually ground to smash into. Yeah, just consider it flat and then you won't crash into it.
Well, how they make it okay inside their own heads, how they make it okay with themselves, is they state that they're following an altitude. When they use the word just, we're just following an altitude. Now, to follow an altitude around a spherical surface means to follow basically a parallel to that spherical surface. But then they'll state that they're using local horizontals. I mean, horizontal is a constant. It's not a local thing that turns into some other local thing somewhere else. It's a constant position. It's a constant thing. It's like once you dip below horizontal, which you'd have to do to go around a spherical surface, then there is no way around that. You can't hold horizontal and have to dip below horizontal. So it's like we just follow an altitude. We just hold an altitude. It's like that kind of makes it go away inside their own head. But that doesn't, you're just holding an altitude. But if that's an altitude is what? An equidistant distance from the surface of the Earth. If that's on a globe, then you have no choice but to violate the horizontal. You have to. You have to follow that altitude around the spherical surface that it's claimed to be going around. Can't.
Yeah,
So
but
this is
ballers are
known
prone to
as
do that.
Go on, citation, please. Sorry, 10th.
So in order to maintain an altitude in a curved flight path, you must constantly change your attitude. That's a necessary factor that must occur. And that's the thing, is the attitude.
Yeah, it's an accumulation that builds from your first second of cruising altitude, basically. It's an accumulation. Once you're up in the air and you're at cruising altitude, it's an accumulation per second from there. So you can't, once you're at cruising altitude, to fly any airplane around a globe Earth, you could not ever fly at any time with your nose above horizontal to follow the curvature and the altitude. The altitude follows the curvature, which means you've got to follow the altitude, which means you've got to be constantly, from the very word go, starting off with a below horizontal pitch. Do they do that? No, they have to be pitched above horizontal to fly horizontally.
Well, can anybody give the ballers a lift? I think Brian can.
Yeah, I'm not popular with them, with the whole airplane stuff and all that. I get a lot of hassle off them and some of the pilots and all that. But it's like, it's not my fault. It is what it is. You know, the reality is reality.
Yeah, that's plain to see right now.
The ball is destroyed.
Yeah, that's why Wolfie seems to have an attitude when it comes to the plane's attitude.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better.
I think he was trying to lay in a pun, actually.
Yeah, I know. It was very good.
Please, someone else say something. I don't want that terrible pun to
Well,
be
that. I mean, he's a pilot, a corporate pilot, so he's buying all the jargon because there are people who actually believe this stuff and think that's how it works. Then there's those that know, and the ones that know don't want to debate because they're going to lose every single debate. So who do we have coming?
Like
what's that?
Like the Austrian female pilot who released a statement that she noticed in her whole career that the gyro that she used never flipped over. She's like, wait a minute. If I'm flying around a curve and this plane is changing attitude, this gyro should be flipped backwards, but it isn't. And she said, wow, I've been lied to.
Well, she's honest with herself.
With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, smashed the PayPal link, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Fly anymore. Because
That's the
you
one
said
I'm
the Earth
talking
is flat.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a mechanism from within that you're always being spied on by somebody. So if you say something out of line, that's what happens to you. I just hope she got to keep her frequent flyer miles.
well, the thing about it is, well, that's something I really don't like when I hear. Like, that's something that really infuriates
It's grimy.
me. When it comes to Wolfie 6020, it infuriates me, and I'll tell you why. Because he'll say, where are all the pilots? Where are all the pilots, the flat earth pilots? And knowing that that lady came out in 2017 and she got grounded and had to go see a psychiatrist. So would you state, if you're a pilot and that's your career, are you going to come out and say the earth is flat just to be a rebel and have your career taken away, or to be grounded and work as ground staff? and have your commercial pilot license taken off you. They're not going to do that, and he knows that. Yet he still states we're all the flat Earth pilots.
Listen, this is across the board. My teacher at a young age said, "I don't even believe it, but I have to teach it." It starts there, and then when you get into the universities and the masters and the club that's there, you have to toe the line, whether it's evolution or whatever. You have to toe that line, or else you're not going to be accepted in that department.
There's a readjustment required in terms of our attitude towards this, right? I'm saying how monumental this argument is. Well, it changes everything, including this situation, doesn't it? So, if John was here, he'd be summarising how, well, they say where are all the flat Earth pilots? Well, their globe model's a flat Earth model. It was derived from elevation angles. So they're all flat Earth pilots. What do you say? No, they all believe in the globe. Yeah, the globe's a flat Earth model. So they're all flat Earth pilots. You say they're all globers? Yeah, that's a flat Earth model. Elevation angles, celestial sphere, flat plane. That's what it's based on.
No,
yeah, but is it safe to say that most of them are not even thinking about it? They're just doing their job and flying?
They don't need to think much about it because their model started with a flat plane, and that's how they negotiate their model with the flat plane intact. It starts with its origins, which were then later used to derive the fundy sphere belief where you think the ground's curving, but in terms of pilots, with a celestial sphere and a centre of a presupposed spherical Earth and a flat plane, they can still fly on that, can't they? The flat plane bit of their model. And believe me, their model, the globe, does have a flat plane bit. It was all derived from it, the celestial sphere being the only curved bit to that flat plane that's actually representative of the ground we stand on. So they just use that flat plane bit of their globe model. Yeah, I know part of their model also is utilised to make people think the ground that they're actually flying over and is flat is curving. But that's not what they do, is it? And Wolfie doesn't do it either. He flies on a flat plane too, doesn't he, Brian?
Yes, Nathan.
Well, that's why.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, that's why you're going to need a flat plane for that. Is just like you're going to need R for that. It's obvious. Now, we know it. They need to know it. Some of them do and can't talk about it. Some of them don't care.
Well, the thing about it is with Wolfie is that what they have what they use is what they call great circle routes. And the great circle routes laid out flat or a straight line. And what they try and do, this is how they do it inside their own head. This is Wolfie's main argument, is his flight plans are all great circle routes. But great circle routes are all basically longitudinal. They're mainly all longitudinal routes. That's why flights going from, for a long, long time, flights going from South Africa to South America and whatever, they're all dog legs. You go north to then go south because they're all longitudinal routes. They're all great circle routes. But that great circle is all based around the polar radius, not the equatorial radius. In the north, they can mess around with it a bit, but in the south, they have no choice but to stick to the polar radius, right? And the thing about it is that, like, they try and claim that a straight line, that when they, see, in their own head, when they're flying along a great circle route, they're just flying in a straight line, and that brings them to where they want to go. Not understanding that, like, you can move forward, let's say, on a spherical surface, following a path, a forward path, but all you're doing is not deviating from forward. You're not actually moving in a straight line because you're changing elevations constantly. So you're not moving in a straight line. You're just not deviating from forward, and that's all you're doing. So in their own head, they try and make it okay by saying, well, we use great circle routes, but they're just, what's a great circle route? It's only based off of elevation angles to Polaris. They have nothing. Do you know what I mean? It's just a straight line. That's all it is. But that is things like that allow them to believe. Things like that and the radar horizon, things like that, which are calculations. Based on what? Based on R and based on a two-way speed of light measurement. It never happened. Two things that are just calculations. You know, things like that. It's like they don't ever take anything else into account other than, you know, a curved line is a straight line on the surface of a sphere, and radar horizons are blocked by geometric horizons. The radar horizon is based on the geometric horizon. There's no There's no thought goes into anything. So it allows them to just whitewash away reality.
I'm pretty sure I've already asked all of the people in the Discord server last week if they all understood this argument, and I got nothing but yeses.
Can I say something before we move into another point or the same point behind Brian?
Yeah, sure.
So I just wanted to say to the woman that was grounded, there should be something that could be legally done about that. Taking away your license and also getting you to see a psychiatrist, because when you become a pilot, for all intents and purposes, you assume that the Earth is a flat stationary plane anyway. So basically, what she has to do as a pilot has really nothing to do with if she thinks it's a ball anyway, because the reason she got her license and understanding aeronautics and all of that is basically flying over a flat stationary plane.
Yeah, but
see how they could
she's
take
labeled
her.
as a crazy though.
Yeah, it's
Once you start
it's
saying
the,
that it's flat.
It's the problem that the industry she's working in has that attitude, regardless of whether or not she could legally win. Let's say she was absolutely slam dunk. It's like, yeah, but what she wants is something she'll never achieve from this point forward, which is that the attitude of her colleagues isn't, well, we'll fire you for pointing this out. Obviously, had she have known that, she'd have probably never mentioned it. But you can't just say, well, your attitude's wrong and therefore I'm going to sue you. Yeah, you can. But what she wants is to work in an environment where they go, oh, isn't that interesting? See you tomorrow. And then she just gets back into her plane and flies another load of cargo or another load of passengers or wherever it is she's flying. But unfortunately, that isn't the case. She's been made a scapegoat. They've held her up as an example. Right? Well, that means that is the attitude of the industry she works in. Well, how does somebody go about changing an entire attitude of an entire industry? They don't. So suddenly you're in the depressing situation where it's like, either I toe the line and understand that for inadvertently stepping out of line when I wasn't intending to do it at all, I didn't know that there was a mass deception that we had to shut up about when it came to the Earth being flat. I just noted the fact that my gyro hadn't spinned in its position when you'd expect it to, given that we're on a bloody sphere. Right? I didn't know that would cost me my job, or that the industry I was in was protecting that particular industry secret. I didn't know. But now I do. It'd be nice if it just didn't matter, if everyone just understood that was the case and it wouldn't matter anymore, I wouldn't be in any more trouble, I'd just be flying again. But that's a long list of things to want changing. And going to court won't change that. You might get compensated for your losses, at best. But that's it. It's crap.
You're underestimating the strength of religion. Heliocentrism is a religion, and they're not going to let go so easily.
Well, what I would say about that lady is, sorry.
Yeah, just to bring on some nuances, it was a Dutch lady pilot, and I don't think she got fired, but she got replaced. So, and this was
that's a better word. She didn't get fired.
Can you let him finish?
No.
So, and this was years ago. So, talking about legal actions doesn't really help now. So,
about that a minute ago, it was a Dutch lady. She just got grounded. She still has a private license, but not a commercial license. There's a lady on, I think it's 24/7, called Marietta, who's a retired female pilot, and she's friends with her. Marietta is friends with the lady from Holland. Like, as far as a legal case goes, at the time she had no hope. Now it's starting to look like she will have a hope in a couple of years' time to take them to court because she can ask them to prove their radius. She can bring that to court, and they won't be able to do anything other than, like, she can show elevation angles. You know what I mean?
Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this. I've had to take an ex-employer to court, and what you want, you never get. Because what you want is things to be how they were, for me, being a rep, being James Bond, flying all over the world. You're never going to get that back at that point once the employer has betrayed you in whatever way, regardless if it's systemic or an individual. If that individual's still there, you're never going to achieve what you want. Things won't go back to normal. There won't suddenly be a scenario where you were none the wiser about mentioning Earth being spherical, wink wink. You know, if you didn't know, you do now, and that's basically going to cost you the rest of your career. Or you can have the abject misery of going through court to maybe get a pittance, if you're lucky, when they say, yeah, we wronged you and you proved it, and we've put you through hell in the process of you trying to prove it. But here's some pittance because you won. Now, sod off. That's what the best you can hope for at that stage.
Yeah, I can understand that, but the thing about it is that why I said in a few years' time is that this tide of understanding of this argument is changing, and that she might feel that her career was stymied and her character was besmirched. She was character assassinated and her career was stymied. Like, so she might feel that bad about it. She might feel that angry about it, and she might bring a court case. But she would be in a better position. My point is that to bring that court case, she will be in a much better position in the next few years than she was in the past few years.
Granted.
In the next few years.
Okay, I'll paraphrase it just so it doesn't give me a headache. Were this situation to befall someone today, same exact scenario, somebody happens to mention in passing, without giving it much thought, that their gyro didn't flip over, and they got sent to a psych evaluation and demoted, right? That person, were they to take it to court in that instance, might be setting precedents with some of the things that we're talking about very right here, right now. So yeah, in that scenario, Brian, yeah.
All I'd say, without trying to labour the point, because I'm not, but what I would say is I'm sure there is other people who are pilots who have contacted her privately and spoke with her, who are of the same mindset as her, that it's not what we're told it is, and we don't correct for any of this stuff we should have to correct for. Do you know what I mean? So I'm sure she has amassed friends who are pilots and working, like, not just commercial but private pilots who work and use that as part of what they do, and they also are on the same side as her, that it's not a globe, it has to be flat plane. So she has, I reckon there's a growing number of those people as well. But, you know, I understand what you're saying, they will make it hell. When anyone tries to do that, they make it hell for you. And they do their best to draw it out, and they try and bring it through the courts for 15 years if they can, to draw it out as long as possible and to bore you with legal details and legal appointments and court dates and all this other rubbish. And they do their best to then give you as little as possible at the end. That's what they do. But some people do go through that just to get what they would view as some kind of justice.
On a brighter note, what I would consider my last acoustic panel arrived today, and it had gone missing. TNT lost it. It was supposed to be on Friday, but it came today after a lot of chasing and a lot of aggravation over the weekend. So there we go. So I've got that up. It's in a weird place considering, because there's a door that links the kitchen to this room, and there's like a massive exposed wall that I can just hear. It's all I can hear now. It's because everything else is treated. I can just hear the bounce out of the kitchen. I've put a massive art panel that I got cheap off eBay, put it up for the audience's benefit. It's in Master B if you happen to want to look at this particular acoustic panel. But somebody had obviously ordered it. It had a minor defect. You can't see it in the picture, but there's like a little tiny flaw in the print. And obviously they had to reprint it and send it out, and then they're stuck with this thing that the guy sent back, or the girl sent back, that it made. So I got it dirt cheap, and what I need was a massive surface area, you know, big panel, which this is. It doesn't do it justice in this image. This is a door frame next to it. It might give you an idea of scale, but it's huge. It's like 122 centimetres by 95 centimetres. Massive picture, just of a, I don't know, rocky landscape. But yeah, very good. That's my last panel, as it now stops a bit of bounce coming back in from a room that hasn't got a door separating me from it. And that's it now. I'm done with all the acoustic treatment. It's taken better part of 3 years, 2.5+ years to do all of the acoustic treatment. A panel a month. or maybe a panel or two if I could find them cheap on eBay and such like. But religiously, begged, borrowed and stolen the money to get together to, you know, do the room out as a studio, and did my final frequency sweep today once this panel was up on the wall. Tested the room, very happy with the results. Happy that I'm no longer have to buy a panel a month. That's the best bit. Like, once that finally came, I was like, that's it now. Done it. Finished. It's a studio. I can call it a studio. It's done. It's treated. So,
thank goodness you don't need any more panel members.
right. I'm over the moon. I can't hear it because one ear is completely filled with blood. So I can't hear anything at all. So once I've finished, put the final panel on, bloody hearing is half gone. There we go, that's life. I'm sure it'll correct itself after a few more visits to specialists. There we go.
If I could go back to the previous subject.
Why? Not enjoyed
because your panel came in at a time where I wanted to comment, but I was courteous to let you finish.
Fair enough. I'm excited. You can't blame me.
No, I'm happy for you because you got no more room in your room. So it's like everything's covered up.
I'm poor, and you know, with a very, very, very limited budget, I've still managed to scrape together about £100 each month, and that's like, you know, a fair chunk of my income. But you know, now I don't have to, and that's going to make me a little bit, well, £100 a month richer. With my objective achieved and having not fell into debt, I'm just chuffed with myself. I'm just pleased. Anyway, go ahead, Tenth. Sorry.
Awesome. Give up the oatmeal, buy a steak. Good job. There are people that know that all this is a farce, but they can't talk about it. Then there's people within that same industry, and there's many industries that are just naive about it. That just read and say, okay, that's how it works. So, yeah, they've in all these disciplines, there's contracts, what you can say, what you can't say. The higher ups know. This is made clear to me by many people telling me this. Of course, you can lose your job over it. Things could happen. But there's a variety or a scale to who actually knows and who doesn't know but goes along. So when you meet, well, for example, when Anthony debated those two college students in England on the streets there, they were legitimately passing on or parroting information they learned in university until Anthony came along. And then Anthony challenged them on every point. And you can see their eyes rolling back in their head like, wait a minute. No, that's wrong. I went to university. What do you know? You know, have you ever done an experiment? Anthony says, yeah, I have. So you can take on those people who parrot, but then there are people that know. Now, who knows and isn't talking about it? That's the one that will never talk about it. And those are the ones who never debate us, by the way.
I like to give Brian credit for using the word besmirched. The only time I ever heard that was in The Godfather, Part 2. Michael Corleone in front of the committee. Great job, Brian.
Yeah, don't forget to drop the ball and get the cannoli, okay, Neil?
But the ones who you're describing that know would also know the importance of keeping their mouth shut and going along. And then they get to enjoy the delights of duper.
Yes, exactly. Perfectly said.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
It was a baller version.
But you know what I'm talking about? The guy who's like, I mean, I've been given secondhand stories from an ex-Freemason in this regard. So, Chris Monk told me about how an Freemasonic higher-up joked about him still believing Earth was a sphere in a kind of nonchalant way with a nod and a wink attached. You know, when in the presence of somebody that needs to know this information, they let them know subtly and let them know that it's a secret subtly so that they're not overtly discussing it. Now, that's a second-hand story, but by the same token, I can imagine that would be the way of things. If you eventually get privy to the information, or you ask the right question at the right time, and it's not going to cost you your job in a club like the Freemasons, then you get privy to the information so that when it comes up in societal terms, you can just have a little grin to yourself. Don't say anything, you idiot. Now, that would be the circumstance that I would imagine befalls us. And for some of the people who know and just can't help themselves, they drop it in as subtle hints in movies and TV shows. That's where you get people like Russian vids highlighting that stuff. Now, some of it comes, again, by second-hand stories that, again, Russian vids did an interview with the director who had certain Freemasonic and flat Earth information, including an AE map and a grid system, flat square grid system, on a blackboard behind the footage when filmed in a school. And they paid for all the food that day, they paid for all of the everything that was going to be needing to be covered, all of the expenses were paid by that person. And they just asked for one thing, and that was that they had access to the room it was being filmed in for a little bit before they filmed. And what did they do? They put an AE map and a grid on the wall, on the blackboard. And you go, okay, why? Well, is that somebody that's just having a bit of a laugh? Can't help themselves? Got a bit of money and they know somebody's producing a film, so that when they see that film they can have a little snicker to themselves? You just don't know. What you do know is that the Earth is actually flat. Somebody's got to know. And it is genuinely a deception, a secret, that your average Joe does not know about and will defend to the great amusement of these people we're now describing here. Look at that person arguing till he's blue in the face about it actually being a sphere. So that person then, after the scrap they've had, comes puffing and puffing up to this greater higher up and goes, yeah, I heard what you mumbled to your mate, but it is a sphere, isn't it? And you know what the higher up would say to him? Of course! Everybody knows it's a sphere. That's what they'd say. And then as the guy turns his back, he'd sneer again and smile to himself about how he knows it isn't.
Yeah, exactly, Nathan. Just like when a child asks an adult, unicorns are real, aren't they? Of course they are. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's like the child is being given confirmation bias by this person who knows better. But that doesn't mean the person who knows better is going to be honest with that child or that person in this scenario. Like, you can say who definitely doesn't know. People like those people Anthony was speaking to in the universities. How many people in universities have absolutely zero idea? Basically all of them. But if you're talking about militaries and other people like that, surveying, they can't, the airline industry, they can't not know. There's people in there that are higher ups, they can't not know. It'd be impossible not to know.
Brian, I'm curious to get the answer of why you use unicorns instead of Santa Claus.
Because if there's any younger people watching this, I don't want them to think of Santa Claus doesn't exist. But I don't mind if they're iffy about you.
Habit say.
Brian, you just had the presence of mind not to do it. I get it.
I remember your Santa Claus belief, Brian.
Hey, Brian, let me comment on what you're saying. I agree. They know. They have to know. You know why? Because we know. Who are we to know? Right? If we know, they know.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, knowing and saying that you know is worthy of ridicule. Knowing and having a grin to yourself is worthy of a promotion.
Yeah, but
exactly.
what you just said, I do in the reverse. Like, I've been in mixed crowds where they know I'm a flat earther. Now, they dare not bring the subject up because this is family and friends, right? They know that I'm on your show 5 days a week. They know when they come to the house and see the books. They know I'm pouring in time of research. They know. So guess what? They don't want to talk about it. But I sit there and I know they know that they don't want to talk about it. And I'm having to laugh at them.
Yeah. And if they do bring it up, it's curtains.
Well, it happened one time in a very profound way. It was a get-together, and someone that I see maybe once every couple of years was there. And everyone knows this person and well-liked, well-respected. And we're just sitting there, eating munchies, talking, and the subject came up. I don't know how, I can't remember, but I'm sitting across, and I just did the 3 housekeeping questions. This is all pre-Sextant stuff. And just got demolished. to a point where he was arguing and everyone was listening to him arguing with me. And I just stayed cool and asked the 3 questions. And at the end, people came up to me privately and said, that was embarrassing for him. I can't believe I dodged your questions. And these are the same people who believe what he believes, though. But they saw it. It was devastating.
What was his answer for gas pressure out of containment, just out of curiosity?
Same as all the other, people. Well, it just works that way because, and I go, because of what? The firmament? The container of some kind? And he got stuck there. I said, so you get propane without a tank? It was so embarrassing because he wouldn't answer the question directly. He would just say, well, they know more. Who knows more? I'm asking you the question. How do you have gas pressure without containment? How are we breathing? If you believe the heliocentric model, our Earth with its air is right next to a huge vacuum. Why isn't all the air going into that vacuum? That black stuff up there, as Nathan says. Why? Everybody in the room realized how strong the question was. And it just melted. Well, to say the least, I got an email saying, I hope, I don't want to get too personal here, but he was apologetic that if it got to a point of argument to where we can't be friends. And I said, no, we're always friends.
Okay, that's like an ad hom ending. Well, I'm going to be friends with you then, if I can't win and prove we're on a sphere.
Well, it came with attachments of things for me to go and view, and I just posted the housekeeping questions back to him again. I never got an answer. So, to say the least, people don't like debating your panel members, Nathan, once they know we're putting in the time to understand arguments.
I got to ask a question, Nathan. And tell me if this is the same thing my son does with the 2 points in the sky. Let me read it to you. It was in your chat yesterday when you re-aired the show. This guy says, we see 2 circles in our sky. He was talking to T. Brown. I would like to know what 2 places on Earth they circle. Flat Earth ignores it. The globe Earth addresses it. This is not begging the question. This is answering. That's the same thing my son talks about, right? The 2 points in the sky?
Other than saying the globe Earth addresses it, he hasn't explained how the globe Earth addresses it. He said there's 2 circles in the sky. Okay. Well, at that point, nothing's inferring anything, is it? If I say there's 2 circles in the sky and you ignore all preconceived notions of what stars are, and I literally just say, there's just 2 circles. Just picture 2 circles in the sky. Have you got those 2 circles in the sky at the moment? Yep, great. So no inference whatsoever about spheriness, just 2 circles in the sky. Okay? The globe explains that. All right. The Dick Earth explains that, Neil. It doesn't mean anything. He hasn't explained why he explains it. If he had, he'd affirm the consequent. If the Earth's a sphere, I will observe antipodal star rotation from the north and south hemisphere, respectively. I do observe north and south hemispherical star observations. Shh, I'm not begging the question of hemispheres. Therefore, Earth's a sphere. Well, that's if P then Q, Q therefore P. That's an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. It's just not formulated into anything other than saying there's 2 circles in the sky, globe explains it. All right.
That's the greatest flat Earth proof there ever was, is star trails. Because in their model, we're going through so many gyrations and motions, and yet Polaris is always where it is. That destroys what they say it is. It is impossible in their model for Polaris to be always where it's at when we're going 1,000 miles, 66,000 miles, 500,000 miles, 2.1 million miles, in all different directions in this galaxy and universe. And yet, for eternity of time, that star never moves. That's a flat Earth proof, folks.
No, there's better education that explain it. We're just not educated enough.
Yeah, but they do explain that on their globe model, and they say that 25,000 years ago, a different star was the pole star, and that in 25,000 years, whatever, a new star is going to be the pole. Right, but the thing about it is all this.
Hang on.
Hang
I
on,
love
hang
It's
on.
post hoc ad proctor hoc. Is that right? Citation police, did I get that correct? Yes, your Latin was excellent, Nathan. Oh, thank you.
Brian, that was good you brought that up, because that's the only way they can get around it, is to say, in your lifetime, you can't prove me wrong. I'll just say every 26,000 years it changes. Oh, really? You got validation for that?
No, you see, look, this is the thing about it. Like this argument about the 2 points in the sky. Yeah, there's 2 points in the sky. Where are the 2 points on the ground? Right. Well, 1 point is underneath Polaris. Okay, so that's the GP of Polaris. How do we know my distance from that? You're going to require a flat plane. Where's the other supposed? Where is the other supposed point?
There's
you
a
know,
point.
It's
you know what I mean? It's like
it's a retroactive ad hoc explanation. This was detailed. I can't remember what the example was that Citation Police gave, but it was classic. It's one of those. Oh right, that's a nice long description in Latin, and it just stuck in my mind. But yeah, it's a after the fact, post-dated explanation that goes back in time. Oh, it was with the Starfleet, right? So you got Star Wars episodes 3, 4, and 5 being rendered completely obsolete by a former episode where someone comes out of star travel at hyperspeed and just wipes out an entire fleet with a tiny little vessel. You're like, well, that would render all of these episodes completely, nonsensical. So you need a new, after the fact, but before the time you're talking about, explanation for that. Was, like I say, Citation Police gave it in Latin. I probably butchered it badly, but I don't know. I just think it's very eloquent.
Brian, finish what you were going to say.
what I was going to say was that like their claim that they had this is a total straw man. They say I don't know if you call it a straw man. You correct me if I'm wrong, but they say we address the 2 points in the sky. Flat earthers avoid it. That is not true. What happens is flat earthers don't try and make claims about it because we don't know what the sky is. But what they do is not address it. They hijack it and wrap it into their model. And that's what they've always done. They just hijack things. They hijack perspective. They hijack everything. That's all they do. They have to hijack things. And all they did was hijack these 2 points in the sky and say, has to be a globe because of this. Without ever taking anything else into account. This is globe. That's all they did. And so they used these stupid hijacked points to try and prove a globe. But as we know of recent times, the globe is built on a flat earth.
Whenever you hear the term, flat earthers don't have an explanation for ... end quote. That term, flat earthers don't have an explanation for, loosely translates into I, as a globe earther, have a claim about this particular thing. Rather than make it as a positive claim, I'm going to reverse the burden and start the process of false dichotomy by asserting that my opponent, who has made no claim in this regard, has no explanation for this claim I will later claim victory of, without necessarily even making or defending, because I've repositioned it by way of burden of proof into my opponent's model that he may or may not have even claimed. Ergo, a straw man, reification, burden of proof reversal, fallacy, and false dichotomy setup. So, in a few sentences, flat earthers don't have an explanation for the horizon. Loosely translated, flat earthers don't need the horizon to make any claims about anything ever. But globe earthers absolutely require it to be a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve. It's part of their globe earth religion. So saying that a flat earther doesn't have an explanation for the horizon is a loose translation of, I really don't want to get into actually defending my claim that the horizon's a physical edge called Earth curve. So I'm going to say you can't explain it, and hope you latch on to my straw man, burden of proof reversal fallacy, and false dichotomy setup, because then you'll start arguing it for me. That's their positioning. Complex, even though it's fairly straightforward in the setup.
Nathan, this is a full destruction of their own argument. They don't realize it. They are telling us in all of the Sextant books that the actual measurement is coming from the center of their globe. Let's just entertain that for a minute. So they cut their globe in half. They have an equatorial plane. They're taking all these measurements of these circles from a flat plane. They're saying it's correct. It all starts from flat. So they're arguing against themselves, because all I do is say, okay, so where are you getting your measurements? The angle, can you get it with a curved adjacent? No. So where are you getting it? Well, we're getting from the center. Okay, so is that equatorial plane flat? Yeah. Okay, well, you just destroyed your argument.
Perfect. Anybody got anything to add?
Welcome to Flat Earth.
With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!